There is a person at the office whose birthday nobody remembers until someone glances at a calendar app and says it out loud in the middle of a meeting. A card gets passed around, someone brings a small cake from the grocery store, and the room sings for maybe 20 seconds before everyone goes back to their screens. The person smiles, says thank you, eats a slice, and by lunchtime has completely forgotten it ever happened. No countdown post the night before, no elaborate plans, no mention of turning another year older unless someone else brings it up first. If you know someone like that, or if you are that person, you have probably heard the same explanations over and over. Cold, ungrateful, afraid of aging, just doesn't know how to have fun. But none of those explanations survive contact with what psychology actually knows about people who treat their own birthday like an ordinary Tuesday. To understand where this pattern comes from, it helps to follow it the way it actually develops, starting long before anyone becomes an adult who shrugs off cake and candles. If any part of this sounds like you, stay for the next few minutes, because the explanation gets more specific than you might expect. And if you have ever wondered why a birthday leaves you completely unmoved, the answer is coming. Picture a child around age 7, the kind of age where a birthday still feels like the center of the universe for exactly one day. That child wakes up expecting something to be different. Maybe it is, most years. But in at least one memory, nothing happens the way it was supposed to. A parent is distracted by work, a sibling's crisis eats the whole afternoon, or the day simply passes with the same silence as any other. Nobody frames it as a tragedy at the time, and it usually isn't one. Children are resilient, and one quiet birthday rarely damages anyone permanently. But the nervous system takes notes anyway. Researchers who study early attachment, building on work that traces back to John Bowlby, have long shown that children calibrate their expectations of other people based on repeated, ordinary moments, not just the dramatic ones. A birthday that consistently underdelivers becomes one more data point in a much larger pattern of learning what to expect and what not to expect from the people around you. By adolescence, that early calibration meets a second force, one that has nothing to do with family and everything to do with comparison. Teenagers watch each other constantly, and birthdays become one more stage where social value gets measured in real time. Who got the bigger party, who got tagged in more photos, whose friends showed up, and whose did not. For a teenager who already learned, years earlier, that expecting too much from a birthday tends to backfire, this new layer of public comparison adds a second, sharper reason to disengage. It is far safer to say I don't really care about my birthday before the day arrives than to risk finding out in front of an audience that nobody bothered to notice. Psychologists who study self-worth, most notably Jennifer Crocker at the University of Michigan, describe this as contingent self-worth, meaning a person's sense of value becomes tied to specific external outcomes, like how many people remember to celebrate them. What often happens next is almost a defense against that very trap. Some teenagers quietly remove the birthday from the list of things their self-worth depends on, precisely because they sense how dangerous it would be to leave it there. Send this to someone who always insists they don't want a big birthday celebration without any explanation attached. Just send it and keep watching, because the way this plays out in adulthood is where things get genuinely interesting. By the time that pattern reaches adulthood, it rarely looks like sadness anymore. It looks like ease. The person plans nothing, expects nothing, and seems completely unbothered when the day arrives without fanfare. Two very different adults can produce that exact same behavior, though. One of them has built a stable, internal sense of worth that never depended much on any single day to begin with, the kind of security that shows up as calm rather than performance. The other has simply gotten extremely good at not wanting things that might not arrive. From the outside, both look equally unfazed. From the inside, only one of them is actually at peace. There is a related finding from research on affective forecasting, the work of Daniel Gilbert and Timothy Wilson, on what they call the impact bias, which shows that people are consistently bad at predicting how much a future event will affect their happiness, usually overestimating it by a wide margin. Someone who has been burned by that overestimation before, who once believed a birthday would feel enormous and instead felt almost nothing happen around them, may unconsciously correct for that error every year afterward by expecting less and less, until expecting almost nothing becomes automatic rather than a conscious choice. But here is where the objection has to be addressed directly, because it is the fair one. Isn't detachment from birthdays just a sign of emotional maturity? Of not needing external validation the way immature people do? Sometimes, yes, completely. Plenty of emotionally secure adults genuinely find birthdays unnecessary. Not because celebration threatens them, but because their sense of being valued was never fragile enough to need a yearly reminder. The difference is not in what they say out loud, since both the secure person and the guarded person will say almost the same sentence, something close to "I don't need anything special." The difference shows up in what happens in their body when someone actually tries. Offer a small, low-pressure gesture. A coffee, a short message, someone remembering without making a scene of it. And watch closely. Calm and warmth point toward real security. A flash of discomfort, an urge to deflect, a joke that shuts the moment down too quickly, those point toward a system that learned long ago that wanting something and not receiving it costs more than wanting nothing at all. This shows up most clearly inside relationships, long after the original childhood moment has been forgotten. A partner spends weeks planning something thoughtful, nothing extravagant, just a dinner or a weekend that took real effort to arrange. The guarded adult receives it and instead of settling into it, starts managing it, downplaying how nice it is, insisting the partner shouldn't have bothered, changing the subject faster than the moment deserves. The partner, understandably, starts to wonder whether their effort even lands, and over years that confusion can quietly wear down a relationship that never had an actual problem to begin with, only an old habit wearing a new disguise. That distinction matters because the two paths lead to very different places over time. Someone operating from genuine security tends to stay open to affection in every part of life, not just birthdays. Someone operating from old protection often finds that same guardedness quietly spreading into other areas, into how they receive compliments, how they accept help, how they let people care for them in general. What began as a defense against one disappointing childhood memory can end up shaping the entire architecture of how a person lets love in. None of this means anyone needs to force a celebration that feels wrong. A quiet birthday is not by itself evidence of anything broken. Plenty of people simply prefer low-key days, and that preference deserves respect exactly as it is. The useful question was never whether you celebrate. It is what happens in your chest the moment someone tries. Peace in that moment usually means the indifference is real and healthy. A flicker of resistance usually means the indifference is doing a job it was assigned a long time ago, back when doing that job actually made sense. If there is a way to test this gently, it is not by throwing yourself an elaborate party you don't actually want. It is by allowing one small, specific gesture from someone you trust, and simply noticing what your body does with it, without editing the reaction or explaining it away in the moment. That single piece of information tends to tell you more about where your indifference comes from than years of thinking about it in the abstract ever could. In the end, not caring about your own birthday rarely means your life matters less to you than everyone else's does to them. Sometimes it means you learned, very early and very quietly, that your worth was never going to be handed to you once a year on a specific date, and you built something steadier instead. Other times it means you are still protecting a much younger version of yourself from a disappointment that already happened decades ago and never quite got resolved. Both explanations can produce the exact same shrug on the outside. Only one of them still needs healing. Tell us in the comments which one sounds more like you, the calm version or the protected version, and be honest, because plenty of people watching this are realizing it for the first time right now. If this video actually made sense to you, subscribe for more videos that explain human behavior without turning it into either an insult or an excuse. Share it with someone who always insists their birthday is no big deal, and leave a like before you go.